Dawn Thousand, the great Barian deity and creator of the over 100 numbers. This cosmic horror clashed with Astral long ago. Despite causing Astral to lose his memories in the form of the 99 numbers, Dawn Thousand too was greatly weakened by this battle. Visiting Earth, he picked 7 different people to become his emperors, sealing their memories in the Metherian numbers, and replacing them with the over 100 numbers of his creation. After being brought back to power by absorbing 6 of the 7 emperors, he revealed that he could alter the very cards his opponent used against them using the Numeron network that covered the entire Earth, merging the human world and Barian world together. But what actually was his deck? Yeah, despite being the big bad evil guy of Zexal, Dawn Thousand's Numeron archetype is incredibly small. So today, I'm going to try and make an attempt to create a Dawn Thousand character deck. I will warn you, though, this one is a real head-scratcher, so if you dare to play this deck in a non-automated simulator, or god forbid in real life, you should get to play with a house rule that lets you choose which cards you draw at any given point. And if you do play this in an automated simulator, then God help you. So yeah, Dawn Thousand doesn't really have a deck. As of this recording, he's also not in Duel Links, meaning there are no voice lines that can guide me to a support archetype either. However, there are 6 Barian Emperors that Dawn Thousand did manage to absorb, so why wouldn't he have access to all of their cards instead? That's right, we're going through cards from Barian Emperors ranging from Mizar to Dumon that Dawn Thousand can make use of, making this the ultimate send-off to the Barian Emperors as well. First, let's look at Mizar's Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Primal and the accompanying counter trap, Tachyon Transmigration. If a Dragon Xyz declares an attack, Tachyon Primal attaches itself from the hand to that monster as an overlay unit. If a Dragon Xyz is on the field, it can summon itself from the hand to either field. Regardless of which side it's summoned to, the owner can add a Tachyon back row from their deck to the hand. If the player controls a Galaxy Eyes monster, Tachyon Transmigration can be activated as Chainlink 2 or higher. If it's specifically a Tachyon Dragon monster, it can also be activated from the hand. Tachyon Transmigration negates all of the opponent's activated effects that resolve after it in the chain, and shuffles those cards into the deck. Up next from Garag, we have Fire Hand, Ice Hand, and Prominence Hand. When either of the first 2 are destroyed and sent to the grave, they can summon the other from the deck, then destroy a card on the field. Fire Hand destroys a monster, and Ice Hand destroys a back row. If either are on the field, Prominence Hand can summon itself from the hand. Then from Alito, we just have Batlin Boxer Veil. When the player takes battle damage, it can summon itself from the hand and gain life points equal to the damage taken. From Vector, there's Umbral Horror Ghost. By giving up the normal summon for the turn, Ghost can special summon itself and another low-level fiend from the hand. What fiends might those be? Well, Vector did absorb number 96, which was a fragment of Dawn Thousand in the first place, so let's welcome back Malysvorus Fork, Knife, and Spoon. Fork can be special summoned by sending another fiend from the hand to the grave. When Knife is normal summoned, it can summon another Malysvorus from the grave. And when a Malysvorus with a different name is summoned, Spoon can summon another level 2 fiend from the grave with its effects negated. From Marin, we have Aurora Wing, Blizzard Falcon, and Blizzard Thunderbird. Once per turn, Aurora Wing can summon itself from the grave in attack mode if it's destroyed in battle. Once while on the field, if Blizzard Falcon's attack is higher than its original value, it can inflict 1500 points of damage to the opponent. And once per turn, Blizzard Thunderbird can discard a card from the hand to summon a Water Wing Beast from the hand in Graveyard, then return itself to the hand. And finally, from Dumon, we have Star Seraph Scepter and 2 copies of Star Seraph Sovereignty. When Scepter is summoned, it can add a Star Seraph from the deck to the hand. If a monster is Xyz summoned using Scepter and at least 2 other monsters, that Xyz monster can target a card and destroy a card on the field when it's summoned, then draw a card. Sovereignty can only be used as Xyz material for the summon of monsters that require at least 3 overlay units. If a Star Seraph is summoned to the player's field, Sovereignty can summon itself from the hand, then draw a card, and summon that card if it was a Star Seraph monster. And Dawn Thousand never got the chance to absorb Nash, so no sharks for him. Though that doesn't do it for his monsters yet. We've got a few left. First, a copy of Dream Cicada, and 2 copies of Oily Cicada. Dream Cicada can be special summoned from the hand if the player controls an attack position insect monster. When summoned, it can change a monster's battle position. When Oily Cicada is summoned, it can reduce the levels of all of the player's insects by 1. If Oily Cicada's battle position is changed, it can summon another Oily Cicada from the hand, deck, or graveyard. And for the last main deck monster, we have Dawn Thousand's very own Numeron Wall. If the player takes any battle damage, it can summon itself from the hand and end the battle phase there. If the player controls no cards or only controls Numeron Wall, it can be sent from the hand or field to the grave to activate Numeron Network directly from the deck. And speaking of Numeron Network, let's start off the back row by looking at the field spell. While on the field, the player's Numeron Xyz monsters can activate their effects without detaching overlay units. Once per turn during the main phase, Network can send a Numeron normal spell that meets its activation condition from the deck to the grave to copy that spell's effect. There are 3 such normal spells that are applicable for Dawn Thousand's deck: Numeron Calling, Numeron Chaos Ritual, and Numeron Storm. If Numeron Network is on the field and the player controls no monsters, Numeron Calling can summon up to 4 Numeron Gate monsters with different names, but they get banished during the end phase, and the player can only conduct 1 other summon after that for the rest of the turn. If a face-up Chaos No. 1 Numeron Chaos Gate Sunya was destroyed by a monster effect and sent to the graveyard, Numeron Chaos Ritual can target Numeron Network and 4 number monsters that are banished or in the graveyard, then summon Chaos No. 1000 Numeronius from the extra deck, change its attack and defense points to 10,000, and then attach all 5 targeted cards to it as overlay units. The player can only summon once for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. Numeron Storm can only be activated if the player controls a Numeronius monster, and it destroys all of the opponent's back row and burns them for 1,000 damage for each card destroyed this way. Ninjutsu Art of Mosquito Marching can summon up to 2 insects from the hand, but if summoning 2, they have to have the same level. If the player controls number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito, this card can be banished from the grave to place hallucination counters on opposing monsters up to the number of insects that the player controls. Monsters with hallucination counters have their effects negated. For some Xyz support, let's look to Xyz Align, Glorious Numbers, and Numbers Avail. Xyz Align targets 2 face-up monsters, including at least 1 the player controls, and changes their levels from 1 to 12, but the player's extra deck is locked to only summoning monsters that share a type with one of the targets that turn. If the player controls no monsters, Glorious Numbers can summon a number from the grave and draw a card. It can also be banished from the grave to attach a card from the hand to a number as an Xyz material as well. If the opponent controls a monster from the extra deck and the player does not, Numbers Avail can take 4 different numbers with different ranks and summon a 5th number from the extra deck whose number is equal to the combined numbers in the names of the previous 4, then attach those 4 to it as overlay units, though the player cannot special summon monsters besides numbers while they control that monster. But now it's time for the Barian suite. And since it's that time of year, I'm going to give myself the Christmas gift of not having to read what these cards do again, as I've covered each of them multiple times by now in previous Barian Emperor profiles. If you don't know what they do, there are 7 different Barian Emperor profiles that will be linked in a playlist in the description. For Dawn Thousand's Barian suite, we have 7th Ascension, 7th Tachyon, 7th Force, 7th Eternity, Rank Up Magic's the 7th one, Quick Chaos, Barian's Force, Limited Barian's Force, and Barian's Chaos Draw. To round out the main deck, we have the 3 spells that Dawn Thousand lent to Vector, though since they also bear his name, it only makes sense for him to play them too. Rank Up Magic Admiration of the Thousands targets at least 1 Xyz monster in each grave, all of which must have the same rank. Then it summons a Chaos Xyz or Chaos number that's 1 rank higher from the extra deck, attaching those monsters to it as overlay units, though other monsters cannot be summoned that turn. When Contract with Dawn Thousand is activated, both players lose 1,000 life points and draw a card. The card drawn by both players must stay revealed to their opponent. If a player has a spell revealed by this effect, they cannot normal summon or set monsters. During each opponent's end phase, Dawn Thousand's Throne restores 500 life points to the player for every time they took damage that turn. If a non-chaos number is attacked by the opponent, the Throne can be sent to the grave to negate that attack and rank up that monster into a chaos number with the same number in its name. Now, by the time Dawn 1000 faced down Yuma and Nash, he had access to every number in the world aside from those owned by the two, as his Numeron network supposedly collected them all up by covering the planet. That being said, we can't extend Dawn 1000's extra deck to include all of those numbers and chaos numbers, so we'll have to settle for the 30 that can hold the most significance and relation to his character. So once again, we're skipping the side deck, and you can pick which 15 to move aside. First, we have numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Infection Buzz King is summoned using 2 or more level 8 monsters. When it's Xyz summoned, it can send a card from the opponent's extra deck to the grave. Once per turn, during the standby phase, it can attach a card from the opponent's grave to itself as an overlay unit. Also once per turn, it can detach an overlay unit to target and destroy an opponent's card. Then, if it was a face-up monster, it burns the opponent for half the attack points that the monster had when it was on the field. Ninja Shadow Mosquito is summoned using 2 or more level 2 monsters, and it cannot be destroyed in battle, nor does the player take any battle damage from battles involving it. While it's on the field, all opposing monsters must attack if able. When an attack is declared, number 2 can either detach a material to place a hallucination counter on an opponent's monster, or inflict damage to the opponent equal to the attack points of a monster with a hallucination counter on it. Monsters with hallucination counters have their effects negated. Cicada King is summoned using 2 level 3 monsters. If its battle position is changed, it can summon an insect from the hand or grave in defense mode. Once per turn, when a monster on the field activates its effect, number 3 can detach an overlay unit to target that monster, negate its effects, then either boost an insect on the field by 500 defense points, or change an insect's battle position. Stealth Kraken is summoned using 2 level 4 water monsters, and changes all monsters on the field to be water attributes. Once per turn during either player's main phase, number 4 can destroy an opponent's water monster and burn them for half of that monster's attack points on the field. If Stealth Kraken is destroyed, it can summon Stealth Kraken spawns from the extra deck up to the number of overlay units it had, then attach a water monster from the grave to each as an overlay unit. Since Stealth Kraken is summoned using 2 overlay units, and it doesn't natively detach any, we'll give the Dawn 2 copies of Spawn. In addition to being summoned by number 4, Stealth Kraken Spawn can also be summoned using any 2 level 4 water monsters. Once per turn during the main phase, it can destroy an opponent's water monster. If Spawn is destroyed after having been summoned by a number monster's effect, it can summon another Stealth Kraken monster from the grave up to the number of materials it had, then attach 1 water monster from the grave as an overlay unit onto each. But of course, these 4 numbers are the fake numbers that Dawn 1000 created for Vector to arm the fearsome 4 of the Dark Dueling world with. Now for the real numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have Numeron Gates Ecom, Dve, Trini, and Katvari. All of these monsters are exactly the same outside of their names. They can be summoned using 3 level 1 monsters and cannot be destroyed in battle. At the end of the damage step in which they battled, they can detach a material to double the attack points of all Numeron monsters the player controls for the turn, meaning that if you summon all 4 off of Numeron Calling, and have Numeron Network on the field, they can double up to 8,000 by the time the 3rd attack is completed, allowing the 4th to get in for massive damage. This alone caused the Numeron archetype to become an OTK strategy back when it was popular. But now, as foreshadowed earlier, these monsters have a Chaos Xyz evolution. Chaos number 1, Numeron Chaos Gate Sunya. It can be summoned on top of the original number 1 by transferring its materials. When Xyz summoned, it banishes all monsters on the field. During the next standby phase, it can summon itself back. Then, if Numeron Network is in the field zone, it can burn the opponent for the combined attack points of all banished Xyz monsters. Counting up, we have Chaos number 5, Chaos Chimera Dragon, who doesn't really require the original to function. It can be summoned using 2 or more level 6 monsters, but it's ideally summoned using Admiration of the Thousands and several rank 5 monsters. It gains 1,000 attack points for each of its overlay units, and at the end of the damage step, it can detach an overlay unit to attack an opponent's monster again in a row. At the end of the battle phase, the player can pay half their life points to target 2 cards in either graveyard, place 1 on top of the deck, and attach the other to itself. Next, for a huge leap up, we have Dawn 1000's Reclaimed Fragment. Number 96, Dark Mist. It's summoned using 3 level 2 monsters, and once per battle, when it battles, it can detach a material to cut the opposing monster's attack points in half to gain those lost attack points for itself. This monster too has a Chaos Xyz evolution. Chaos number 96, Dark Storm, which cannot be destroyed in battle, and any battle damage the player takes from battles involving it goes to the opponent instead. If it has the original number 96 as an overlay unit, it can gain a similar effect, but instead of reducing the opponent's monster's attack points by half, it reduces them to 0, then gains that monster's original attack points. And since Dawn Thousand's mission is to destroy Astral World, it'd only make sense for him to use number 98, Antitopian. When a monster declares an attack, Antitopian can detach a material to change that monster to defense mode. Once per turn during either player's turn, if it's in the graveyard, it can target a Utopia monster to summon itself back, then attach that Utopia to itself as an overlay unit. Now for the numbers of all of the Barian Emperors that Dawn Thousand absorbed, numbers 102, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Since this video is the great send-off to the Barians, I suppose I'll go over them each one more time since I skipped over the Barian suite of back row. Number 102, Star Seraph Sentry, is summoned using 3 level 4 light monsters. Once per turn, it can detach an overlay unit to have an opponent's monster's attack points and negate its effects. If number 102 would be destroyed, it can detach all of its overlay units instead, and if it does, all battle damage the player takes for the rest of the turn is halved. Number 103, Ragna Zero, is summoned using 2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, during either player's turn, it can detach an overlay unit to destroy an opponent's attack position monster whose current attack points differ from its original value, then draw a card. Number 104, Masquerade, is summoned using 3 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, it can send the top card of the opponent's deck to the grave. During either player's battle phase, if the opponent activates a monster effect, number 104 can detach a material to negate the activation and burn the opponent for 800 damage. Number 105, Batlin Boxer Star Cestus, is also summoned using 3 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, when a Batlin Boxer battles, number 105 can detach an overlay unit to negate the effects of the opponent's battling monster, and prevent the player's battling monster from being destroyed, and inflict all of the battle damage from that battle onto the opponent. Number 106, Giant Hand, is summoned using 2 level 4 monsters. When a monster effect is activated on the opponent's field, number 106 can detach 2 overlay units to target an opponent's face-up monster to negate its effects and prevent it from changing its battle position while number 106 is on the field. Number 107, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, is summoned using 2 level 8 monsters. Once per turn at the start of the player's battle phase, number 107 can detach an overlay unit to negate the effects of all other face-up monsters and restore their attack and defense points to their original values. During the battle phase, each time an opponent's activated effect resolves, number 107 gains 1000 attack and defense points and can attack a second time. And now for the final send-off to the Barian Emperor Aces. Here are their Chaos Xyz evolutions. Chaos number 102, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chaos number 102, Archfiend Seraph, can prevent its destruction by detaching 2 Xyz materials. If its last material is detached, it burns the opponent for 1500 damage. If it has the original number 102 as an overlay unit, it gains a once per turn effect to detach an overlay unit to change an opponent's monster's attack points to 0 and negate its effects. Chaos number 103, Ragnafinity, can detach an overlay unit to target an opponent's monster and burn them for the difference between that monster's current attack points and its original value. Then, it banishes that monster. If it's destroyed and sent to the grave while it has Xyz material, it can summon itself from the grave if the original number 103 is in the grave. Chaos number 104, Umbral Horror Masquerade, destroys a spell or trap when it's special summoned. If it has the original number 104 as an overlay unit, it can detach a material to negate an opponent's activated monster effect, rip a card out of their hand, and cut their life points in half once each turn. Chaos number 105, Batlin Boxer Comet Cestus, can burn the opponent for half the original attack points of a monster it destroys in battle and sends to the grave. If it has the original number 105 as material, it gains the once per turn effect to detach a material and destroy a target monster. Then, if it was face up, burn the opponent for that monster's attack points from when it was on the field. Chaos number 106, Giant Red Hand, can have any number monster as an overlay unit to gain its effects. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated on the field, Chaos number 106 automatically detaches an overlay unit to negate the effects of all other face-up cards on the field for the turn. Chaos number 107, Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, can detach an overlay unit to negate the effects of all other face-up cards on the field for the turn, and the opponent can't activate the effects of cards on the field. If it has the original number 107 as material, it can tribute 2 monsters to make 3 attacks on other monsters during each battle phase that turn. And now for a number monster of aboriginal creation, we have number XX, Utopic Dark Infinity, who was actually used in the Arc 5 manga by a character named Eve, who summoned several monsters based on previous anime villains. Despite this, I believe that this number could be owned and used by Dawn 1000 as well, just as her other ace monsters should be able to be used by wielders of the Sacred Beasts and Zone respectively, as she supposedly collected them in the first place by traveling through time and space using the Genesis Omega Dragon card. Utopic Dark Infinity is summoned using 2 or more level 10 monsters. When a monster is destroyed in battle and sent to the grave, Utopic Dark Infinity can detach a material to summon it to the player's field in defense mode. During the player's main phase, it can target another special summon monster the player controls to gain life points equal to its attack points. Number XX Utopic Dark Infinity can only use each of its effects once per turn. Finally, we have Chaos number 1000, Numeronius, summoned using 5 level 12 monsters, or by using Numeron Chaos Ritual. Once per turn as a quick effect, it can detach an overlay unit to destroy another monster on the field. At the end of the battle phase, it destroys as many other monsters on the field as possible. If it destroys at least one, it can summon a monster from the opponent's grave to the player's field in defense mode. If Numeronius was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the grave, it can rank up into its Chaos Xyz evolution and attach itself from the grave to it as an overlay unit. Rank 13, Imaginary Chaos number 1000, Numeronius Numeronia. If it's summoned by the effect of its previous form, it gains 100,000 attack and defense points during the opponent's turn only. Then it applies 2 effects at the start of the next turn after it was summoned. All opposing monsters must attack it if able, and at the end of the opponent's turn, if it didn't battle at all, the player automatically wins the duel. When an opponent attacks, Numeronia can detach an overlay unit to negate the attack and gain life points equal to that monster's attack points. And that's going to wrap it up for Dawn 1000 and the final Barian character deck profile. If you'd like to hear me explain my choices and the thought process for this deck, keep watching. Greetings, I am Wham Bam Duel, and welcome to the explanation segment. To those new to the channel, you may have noticed that the profile segment was rather similar to the deck profiles made by Spell Commander 91. This is on purpose though, as he and I are frequent collaborators, and we decided to bring everybody more deck profiles by splitting up some of the work. So to visiting viewers, welcome, and to everybody else, welcome back. Now, what do I even say? Zog, this guy has no deck! What else could I do than make him an amalgamate of all the other Barians that he absorbed alongside the cards that he had given to the Fearsome Four of the Dark Dueling World? Despite that, I tried to take some amount of creative direction in this deck, such as the inclusion of Utopic Dark Infinity. Being the Barian deity and all, with the multi-dimensional powers and the ability to rewrite cards, I'm more than certain he'd have the ability to call upon this monster if it comes up. I fully recognize that this deck is pretty close to unplayable, even for a character deck. As I said earlier, if you decide to play this ridiculous deck for some reason, your opponent should agree to give you the ability to draw whatever cards you like each time you draw. Maybe you should even be allowed to play an extra deck containing every number that Yuma and Shark didn't own at the time they all dueled. Only cards that are Shark exclusive ones were left out. Everything else here feels right, or at least right enough. That's really all I can say. I'll be interested to see what thoughts you all might have regarding this deck in the comments. Until next time, I've been Wham Bam Duel, and I'm always happy to see you.